we're gonna make some doors. Doors! Doors. Doors. Last week we talked about making some doors for Gloomhaven, some extras. And there's a lot of these little doors, so we're going to do a little bit of a production run. It's going to take some time to make these doors. Now, the thing about that is that there's only so much time in a week for me to actually get this done. And, even though it doesn't seem like a lot of work, between editing and doing everything, building them, constructing them, and painting them, it takes some time. I could just do one or two for video's sake, but I'm also doing this for our actual Gloomhaven game as well, because that's the whole point, right? Is to make it more fun to play and, show you guys how I make it, but at the same time be able to use it ourselves so we can enjoy our game a little more instead of just these little flat, cardboard things. Now, there's two different sets, and there's two different styles of these. I think I'm just going to stick to the one set, but you can see there's these guys here, which is like a double door. You can see how they open up on the other side. Maybe later on I might make it, but, in reality, we've been playing the game for quite some time, and we've really never used these unless something comes up in a scenario in the future that says you specifically have to, but otherwise we've always used these doors, right? And you can see it's just one single door, right? If you look at the top of this guy, you'll also notice that, see, this here is flat on the top, and I've got a point here on this one. Now there's also two different kinds of doors when it comes to this as well. See, here's the one with the point, and here's the one with the flat, right? And there's only two of them this way, and there's 6 of them this way. And it's just because of how things get orientated on the board. And I figured I'm going to make the exact same amount as there are those little constructed pieces that they came with the game, because at any one given time there might be a time where you need all 6 plus the other 2, or maybe you just need the 2, or maybe you need 6 of the other kind. And depending on the orientation of the board, you have to have that style in order for it to fit properly with the grid. So just going to mimic that, and then maybe I'll just forget about these ones for now. If I get adventurous, maybe in the future, and there isn't a ton of other things to paint that I clearly have to do, maybe I'll make these doors too. But for now, we're just going to stick to the one kind. Now, a couple of things that I've changed, and a couple of things I'm going to do differently right off the bat is, one, I've come up with these little handles here, and I'll explain that further later on how I came up with that. But they're actually handles that are freely floating there. You can actually pull the door by the little handle. It's kind of neat. And then the other thing I'm going to do differently is that I'm not going to use glue gun for this. I'm going to use actually tacky glue to put this together, because the problem when it comes to a glue gun is that you get like little ridges that's really hard to get rid of, and sculpt down for it to look normal. I just want a better build. The other thing too is that I'm also going to use some stuff from Green Stuff World to make an imprint on the tile itself of like a cobblestone, and I think that'll look really cool. And I do have ones that would work for doing brick and for doing the wood, but I have other methods that I learned from Black Magic Craft actually, that I find work a little bit better. In this particular case, it just stands out better. So talking about Black Magic Craft, there's also DM Scotty, there's Wylock's Armory, and I get a lot of the ideas I use from them, like Black Magic Craft, just coming up with black paint and Mod Podge, to be able to seal anything you do in foam. DM Scotty, finds this, ready board foam
that you can actually peel the paper off of and then be able to use the foam for doing construction and crafts and whatnot, you know, which is awesome, right? Wylock's Armory, you know, he's got some really fantastic ideas for how he has a whole different kind of grid system on doing terrain and lockable pieces, and you know, it's crazy. So, you know, check these guys out if you're in this for crafting. You know, these guys, you know, they've got some amazing stuff. They're fantastic artists, you know, and they do stuff inexpensively too. Like, it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's all with, you know, foam and cardboard and glue and just regular paint. Craft Smart paint. You know, you get this at Michael's. I've got some other stuff I've gotten from Walmart and whatnot. I do have, you know, some oils and stuff too, but when you're doing stuff with foam, you don't need expensive paint. I might do some fine details after and use a little bit of Citadel and whatnot, but you know, just like another thing from Black Magic Craft, you know, was just making my own wash instead of using, you know, expensive Citadel wash. There's not a whole lot in there compared to that big container I just had, you know, and that's like $10 for this little thing. You know, that's great for models when you want to have that perfect color that whatever it is that they blend into, right? But you're just doing black wash for foam stuff that you've designed, you know, a little bit of black paint, some water, and a little bit of a flow agent like a Windex or a soap or something, right? And presto, you've got a great big pile. You know, more details on that, watch Black Magic Craft. You know, he's got all kinds of stuff on the basics of foam. So, you know, I have to at least do a mention of these guys because, you know, I wouldn't be doing a lot of the things I do if I hadn't previously watched videos from them, right? So you have to give them credit for sure. But either way, getting back to the doors, a couple of things that I am going to do differently, and one is, you know, putting that little handle on there, which is great. You know, but the other thing though too is that I'm going to be using some tacky glue instead of glue gun glue, you know, to put them together, because you know, the tacky glue, I can get it nice and smooth and it's going to turn a little nicer after. It's a lot harder to trim this kind of glue. The other thing too is I left the top of these things flat, and for a big reason. When it comes to playing the game, there's going to be times where you have doors that have a sequence of opening, you know, where it'll say A, B, and C, and D, and it's usually on top of that little cardboard tile that they give you. This is flat on top, so it'll be easy to put those markers on top of the doors, and it'll still function the same way that Gloomhaven always functioned. Right now, also, when it comes to occupying a space or a doorway, you know, and you have someone like the Tinkerer here, Spud. There's Spud. Occupying a space, well, you know, he's not always going to fit perfectly through these doors. And, you know, in all reality, people don't, you know, he'd probably be able to fit through there no problem if it wasn't for his base, right? You know, but to occupy the space, we'll just set him on top, just like you would if he was sitting on top of the cardboard. And the door is open, meaning that the path, the door is actually open, and, you know, if there was no one on it and the door's closed, the door's closed. Pretty simple. So, moving forward, let's get into making these doors.
All right, so here we go. Now, looking at the door that I already created earlier, I added this little handle, and I'm probably going to put one on the other side too, so that way it's universal. Right. Now, looking at these, I've got 6 of them here in this stack, right, that have the points on either side of the door, and the only 2 of them that are flat in the other stack. So we got to make sure that we have those in the right orientation when we go to build them as well. So here I've got foam already cut. All I did was just trace them. That's pretty easy.
and I just use my scissors and snip the corners off. So when it comes to foam core, it's pretty easy to cut. You don't have to always use your Proxxon table. Now, I also take a file and I just file down the edges where I cut it, because I just want to get everything nice and smooth. And I'm going to do that with the rest of them here as well. So here, now I'm going to use, this is from Green Stuff World. They come out with these rollers that you can press onto foam and create a pattern. In this particular case, is cobblestone, so you can see how it's got this raised, stone kind of imprint on it. So you put your foam down, roll it, push tight. And it's hard to see with the light here, so I just kind of turn it off to the side of it, and you can see that cobblestone look. And then that'll come out when we do our painting after. So here's another one I've already done. So there's 2 now. Now we just got to do the rest of them. They're just the same. So just push down, push hard, and then you can kind of see there. Look at that. Pretty cool. That's going to just give it that much more detail. All right, so here, I'm just going to quickly take the first one that I've already cut out. There's the door. And there's the frames that are going to get glued together. And we're just going to trace them all out quickly and get all the other doors prepped here as well. And then we'll cut them on the Proxxon table after. So here we are at the Proxxon table. We got all 3 layers all together. We just stack them nice and tight. Put them up against the rail of the Proxxon table. Bring it up to the wire and match it to where we've already drawn the line. And we just turn it on. Get it lined up here and pull down. It'll just slice right through all 3. Nice and straight. Now what's cool is you pull this off, all you gotta do is just turn it completely around and cut again, and you'll have the exact same width on the other side. Then it's just a matter of moving the fence out of the way for a second and kind of pushing your hot wire right up to the corner there. Then move the fence back up so that you still have something straight to guide along, and then cut the top of the door. Just as you're about to reach the corner and you get to the end, shut it off early so that way it doesn't leave a little melted hole in the corner. As you approach the corner and it cools down, you'll finish your cut. Sometimes it sticks a little bit that way, but you end up with a cleaner cut in the corner. And then that's pretty much it. That's how that's done. So now we've got our frame and we have our door, just like that. So let's get the rest of those guys done. Move on to the next step. All right, so now it's time to start assembling and getting the doors done. First, I'm going to take down and smooth off all the edges. including the corners. This will help the door also move freely inside the frame because it needs to be slightly smaller. And any little bits, grind them out too. Use some tacky glue, and now put the 3 pieces of frame together. I did it this way because it actually seems to add a little bit more rigidity, including with the glue, than just one solid piece, and I can make it look like layered brick. So now I'm drawing in the lines as if it's rough planks of wood, and poking little holes at the bottom, making it look like nails, and then with a wire brush, just like Black Magic Craft, you just rough it up all in one direction, and it makes it appear to be like grain of wood after it's painted. So now I'm just assembling all of them, getting them together, finishing the doors for each of them. Again, using the tacky glue instead of hot glue just turns out a little cleaner, less messy. So I kind of lied. I am going to use some hot glue just for a couple of things. One of them is right here. I'm going to use some hot glue just to fasten in these little pointy ends of toothpicks that I've cut off and embedded into the back, bottom, top of each door to make it swivel and function inside the frames. So I hot glued those in because I just wanted that extra strength of the extra glue, and I didn't get it too hot. It was just enough to be able to stick it into the hole and fit in really well, so I can try it right away. Now I use my X-Acto blade, and I'm cutting the lines for where I want it to be brick. Again, this is where it's nice having 3 layers because I'm going to have more of a layered brick look. It's just a matter of staggering the lines between. Then you use a pen or a pencil or anything, just to kind of round over the edges to make it look like brick and separate your cuts a bit. And then you do this with all 3 layers, staggering them to form that look. Poke the hole in the bottom, and there we have a functioning door. I did trim a little off of this one just to make it so that it moves a little smoother. And there we go. So now it's time for Mod Podge. That's the Mod Podge glue and black paint. So, just going to coat everything. I'm basically going to do a run through with one door right now, just to say it's ready to paint. Hinges are working. Base is down, all of the indentation and preparation of the foam before Mod Podging is complete, and then I'll do all the other doors just to ensure that I've got everything down. And here I am, I've just got the pieces just drying. The door is kind of nice, it's got that little pointy thing, I can just stuff it in some foam there and let it dry. So what I do here for indentation, instead of using a ball of tinfoil or something like that, because these are very small and delicate, I actually just use the edges of a beer bottle cap to create that look of stone, right? To give it those indentations and rougher kind of look. And it actually works quite well, especially for small pieces. So now it's about getting them all done. That little thing that you see there with the drill bit, you know, you can buy things like that at Michael's, where it's like actually has like a little handle and a drill bit on it, and it's designed for people that are doing terrain and trees. I just made my own because I wanted to make a smaller hole too, so I used a smaller drill bit. But here I am, I'm just gluing in the hinges and getting the next door ready. I've got one Mod Podge, one fully assembled. This will be the third one fully assembled. I think I'm probably going to skip through a little bit because I'm sure you don't just want to watch me do this over and over and over again, because I still have another like 5 more doors to do. Alright, so now it's time to start painting. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put down the base of a dark gray. So I use dark gray from Craftsmart. But it's still not quite dark enough, as you can see here, that I liked. So I added a little bit of black and I got it pretty dark. But this is just going to be a base. And it also, to make sure that I got in, it's like a second coat to make sure that I got everything in that I need to cover every little bit of foam so nothing shows. Do all the cobblestone first. Now I start on the archways, or the doorways. Get those done. Try to get into every little crevice, every little crack. You gotta get the paint in there. And if you're worried about it not showing up dark afterwards, there's still gonna be a black wash after. So now, after I get that completed, now I'm just gonna use the gray without adding the black to it. And again, I'm going to start doing all of the doorways, get them coated. And now if a little bit shows through in the odd spot, you know, from the previous gray, it's not a big deal. It's already done, and it's just a dark area then at that point. And then there's the cobblestone done for that. This is where it's nice having cheap paint like Craftsmart, right? Because there's a lot of paint being used here. And if you're using something like Citadel or Vallejo or Army Painter or something for this, you would burn through a lot of money. So, you know, go get some cheap paint. I suggest actually, if you can find the big containers they use for schools, right, for your primaries at least, in black and white, that would be awesome. It'll save you a lot of money. And then of course, just some brown from Craftsmart, you know, just to do the first coat on all the doors. I already did a few of them, so I can speed up this video a bit. We're already getting pretty long. So here I'm now using a golden brown, and I'm just doing a light brush using my makeup brushes, right, to highlight all the grain on the wood of the doors. I'm also going to use a little bit, just like I did with the brown, in the cobblestone to highlight some of the stones too, to give it some variance. It may look kind of bright now, but you know, after we do a dry brush of some lighter gray and then do a black wash, it'll kind of blend everything in a little bit, so it'll look like worn, walked on cobblestone. It should be pretty cool. So here I'm just finishing adding some extra color to the cobblestones. And now I add a little bit of burnt orange just so that it's got some earthy color. Now I'm taking a tan, and I take that tan and I'm just gonna brush it in. This is my light brush color, right, to kind of give it a little bit more earthy tones when it comes to the stone, because it's not gonna be just gray. Now keep in mind, I've kept all of the components separate from the floor to the archways or the doors and the doors themselves at this point, because it's going to be easier to dip them in the wash in separate components and then let them dry than it would be to do it as one full piece, because it may leave, you know, spots of dripped black wet paint in places that I don't want. So it also makes it easier to make sure that I don't accidentally get color on something I don't want to get color on. So it makes it a lot easier. Now the last part that I'm doing here is I'm actually adding a vanilla. It's a kind of an off-white from Craftsmart, right? Just to really, and I've got my big makeup brush here, so it's nice and poofy, and you can see by my fingers and, you know, the back of my hand that I'm making sure that it's really, really dry. So it's really just bringing up the highlights, the edges of the brick and the edges of the cobblestone floor, and I put just a little bit on the doors too, so the doors aren't just completely bland one color or two-tone. And just like I said, very, very, very lightly. And it may even still seem kind of strong right now, but again, that'll dull down a little bit once we do the wash. So it's going to look pretty good. Now that we're almost done all of that, the next step will be actually doing the wash. And here we are. Yeah, wash. So start dipping everything in. And you can see, you know, as I'm doing this really quickly, because otherwise this would be a really long video, you know, the detail it brings out in all of these, it's going to be fantastic. You know, and I'm really looking forward to using these even in the game myself. Like, I'm making these to give you guys an idea of how easy it is just to make little doors for your Gloomhaven game, or for any game really. Right, you know, depending, like if you're playing like Super Dungeon Explorer, I've made them for that. I've made them a little larger because of larger scale characters and stuff, right? But you know, it's really, really easy when it comes to this foam board, and you don't even have to have a fancy proxon table or anything like that. You can use an X-Acto knife to cut this stuff. You know, just measure it out, cut them out, you know, and a little bit of glue and some cheap Craftsmart paint and some toothpicks, you know, and you've got doors. You know, it's pretty cool. So I'm almost done here. So look at the detail that brings out. It's just fantastic. It's gonna be great. So now that the wash is done, I'm going to put the little door handles on the doors. So this is just little jump rings, gunmetal. You know, you get them in a 100-pack for like a buck at like junk jewelry stores, like, I don't know, like Ardene's or wherever, right? And it's cheap, but you get a whole bunch of them, just little rings. And all I do is I just take my side cutters there, and, you know, I cut one of them a little more than half, so that way it sticks into the foam a little further, and then that's crazy glue that I'm using, right? And I literally just crazy glue it right into the door, right? And that's it. Bam, there's a handle. I was gonna put one on either side, right? But I didn't feel as though it was really necessary. Generally, you know, the doors, you're opening them one way anyway, it's pushed the other way, so, you know, it's good enough. And I didn't really need to elaborate, I think, much more on them, because they look good, I think, just the way they are. So this is pretty much it, guys. There's all the doors, right? I know it was a long video. I didn't do as much graphics and stuff like that, you know, but it was just a matter of time trying to get it all done, video editing, whatnot. And here they are in use. Looking pretty cool. So that's it for me. Please subscribe. Sorry for being late. It's hard with the amount of time and trying to do everything in a regular job in the day, as well as my internet speed takes a long time to upload. So have a good one, and we'll see you at the end of the week.